So with media days being on the horizon, some of them having passed, other people enjoying the new threads of their new teams, in the area of Utah, we found some very interesting quotes. The one that I will be focusing on today is the one that came from John Collins because I think that it most heavily affects a particular group's development with that new roster that's been put together with Will Hardy's team. That said, it's your boy Ray Hoops. If you're new to the channel, go and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Today, we're talking about the Utah Jazz and John Collins. So of course, everybody in the NBA would love to start in games. Not only that, if you're a perennial starter, you would love to be an all-star, all-NBA caliber player. You'd like to get big money. And John Collins at one point was viewed to be an ascending star, and that is why he ended up getting a contract north of $20 million per year. However, things didn't really pan out that well, and he ended up getting shipped from Atlanta to Utah. And it was a risky move, but at the same time, Utah was planning on being a rough team around the edges anyway, so they were like, why not take a chance and just see what happens? And in the beginning, things got really ugly, and then people started talking about how he was going to be on the trading block, and then things suddenly improved drastically, particularly on the deepest side of the ball for him. And honestly, I saw enough to make me feel comfortable enough in saying that if his contract wasn't literally like 23, 25 million, somewhere in that ballpark, he would be a pretty good guy to have on your roster. As a locker room presence, he's really good with everybody. Even going back to last year as the main reference point that we have, as this is going to be his second year with the Utah Jazz now. He was, though, a perennial starter for them last year. He played in a total of 68 games and only missed in those, I believe, 2 starts. He ended up averaging 15.1 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1.1 assists, and about 28 minutes a night. And he did actually end up having that bounce back year shooting that I figured he would have had, as he obviously ended up damaging, I believe it was his ring finger the previous year, that ended up kept lingering, and it just made him ultimately shoot 29.2% that last year with Atlanta. Coming over here, he ended up shooting 37.1 at the end of the season, but if you looked back previous to All-Star break, he was actually shooting 40% from 3. Afterwards, he started seeing a lot more rough spots, and I think I was the only person that picked up on it. Nobody really talked about it, and everybody was just like, oh my gosh, he's shooting so well this year. And in my head, I was like, he's been shooting like 1 for 5, 1 for 4, 1 for 3 these past couple of games, and it would be long stretches. But nevertheless, he does have the ability to shoot the ball at a high volume and have a high hit rate. The quote that we are going to be asking ourselves about and just breaking down a little bit is going to be him saying, when asked about being a starter, no, I definitely love being a starter. I appreciate the value being a career starter outside of my first year. It's definitely something that I take pride in and value in. Going out and being one of those guys that starts the game off with energy, intensity, and fire. It sort of sets the tone. I enjoy that, and it's definitely something that I hold dear for sure. This is a little bit rough. And the reason why I say that, and it can be cutthroat and dry, but the Jazz plan on playing a bunch of the young guys. Will Hardy was talking about a little bit regarding how he plans to have this as a development year for the young guys, give them the opportunity to show what they have and put themselves on full display and gain that necessary NBA experience to streamline the talent and just boost everybody up to the point where we're not sitting there in a mediocre rebuild where, yes, we have all the draft picks that we want. Yes, we finally drafted everybody that we hope will be future stars, but ultimately they need 2 and 3 and 4 extra seasons just to get ready to actually get something done with the league and be potentially usable role players or all-star caliber players in their own rights. John Collins, we already know what he is. He's going to be a good shooter. He's going to be a solid rebounder. He's going to be a solid overall scorer. He's a decent playmaker, not much shown from it and not much expected from him in that department. Defensively, he has shown his limitations, but he's also gotten a little bit better within the system. Is he still overpaid? I would say so. Is it terrible? I wouldn't necessarily say, but some people would feel that way, and that's why overall the rumblings have said that there's just no desire to trade for him in the current market. And that was actually very interesting to me. I thought that there would have been some soft interest from teams, maybe somebody not willing to pull the trigger, but at least, picking up the phone, just schmoozing Danny Ainge, trying to see what he's asking for him. I thought that was going to be possible. I stood corrected when I found that out, though. And I think that in order for him to change that perception of him in the eyes of other front offices and other teams, he needs the minutes to actually do it. But the question becomes, okay, what exactly does he have to display? And that's a question that only the front office will know. But on top of that, if you start him, if you play him heavy minutes, he's going to take away from the development of guys like Walker Kessler and Taylor Hendricks. Taylor Hendricks apparently put on 21 pounds of mass over this offseason, which I knew he gained weight, but 21 pounds is really freaking impressive. And a lot of people don't actually understand how difficult that is to do, to not just add mass. Like, it's easy to gain weight, but to gain functional weight and still be able to be limber and move around with the skill and just ability to just move comfortably is hard to do. A lot of guys can't do it. A lot of people, they'll gain weight, and you have your Mitchell Robinsons of the world, where when Mitchell Robinson first came in the league, he was just so ridiculously springy. He was lanky, he was springy, he could send a shot all the way to the 15th row. But he wasn't the strongest when it came to bigs like your Jokic's or your Joel Embiid's. So he had a clear weakness. So they had him bulk up, and so he lost some of that athleticism. He lost some of that limberness, that ability to just slide his feet whenever he wants to, wherever he needs to go. But that's kind of a cost to do what you want to do. A lot of people draw the comparison to Bam Adebayo when it comes to Taylor Hendricks, because he's also 6'9". He's a little girthier, but he's also recognized as not being too small to play the center position. So could you see small ball 5 Taylor Hendricks? I think so. Would it be that small? No, because you're still going to have Larry Market on the court. But that is something that I think will end up potentially happening. I do expect Larry Markkanen, Taylor Hendricks, and either John Collins or Walker Kessler to start the game, one of the two. I don't know which one is going to win out, though. And judging by this, he's not going to probably take Walker Kessler getting a start over him well, just to, let the young guys run. Like, Walker's going to have to get it out the mud. And kind of me loves that for him, because it means if Walker Kessler is not prepared and he's just always going to be a defensive, monster, a really great rim protector, but he's always going to be offensively limited, that also prevents us from having to pay him a ridiculous amount of money. Because yes, he's going to be good in spurts, but you can't always keep somebody on the floor if they're not going to be an offensive threat, if they can't space the floor. Some situations you're going to need to have that shooter on the floor. And if Walker Kessler will never progress to be that, and the best you'll get is a DHO option and him cleaning up the glass intermittently, you might be hard-pressed to say John Collins should be the one starting, because clearly Walker Kessler has a well-defined ceiling, and he deserves to be a bench player at that point. And that's not to say that he's going to be a terrible player and, he's just egregious, because to me, if you can be top 5 in rim field goal protection percentages and all advanced statistics when it comes to that side of the ball, I'm content. That's awesome to me. But that also means I don't have to pay you what we paid Rudy Gobert, and ultimately, partially, I guess, played into ultimately him having to leave, and also played into what Minnesota ended up doing when they shipped out Karl Anthony Towns. But that's neither here nor there. I think that this quote is scary because it means, okay, what if you do decide to go Walker Kessler out the gate? What if Walker Kessler does earn that spot, or Will Hardy sees just enough to give him the opportunity to start out games, and John Collins relegates himself to the bench? Does he stay that same proud, happy, and successful locker room presence that he's always been? Does he become disgruntled? How will he take that to himself? And he is a professional at the end of the day. He has been in the league for a long time. He is a veteran. But at the same time, veterans are grown men, and grown men have pride. And that plays into a lot of decisions that they make. Am I going to sit here and say that, oh my goodness, I think that if he doesn't start, he's going to throw a temper tantrum. He's going to be the worst person to have. We're not going to be able to get rid of him. We're going to be stuck with the last year and a half of his contract. And we're just going to have to sit there and just hope somebody wants him in a sign and trade so we can get a second round pick out of it. No, I'm not going to say that. I have a lot more faith in John Collins than that. Let's be honest. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were some rumblings behind closed doors about him desiring a trade, about him asking the front office to inquire about, can we get him somewhere? And to me, that would make the most sense, because we are going really young. We are going to give these young guys an opportunity to really make something shake. And depending on who we get in this draft with the 3 first-round draft picks that we have, things could shake up even more unless we, package them together to slide up in the draft, depending on how we end the year and where we end up placing with our own pick. But that remains to be seen. Either way, this is just really food for thought. I found it to be really the most interesting tidbit that came out of Media Day. There were some other underlying storylines, and I may cover some of those or maybe just compile them into one video. Either way, let me know what you guys think about John Collins. How did you feel about how he played last season? Do you think he should start out the season starting? Or do you think that this is going to be something that ignites the competitive juices in Walker Kessler and forces him to up his standard of play in order to take that position from John Collins? Either way, I'm interested to hear you guys' opinions in the comments below. Go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you made the video this deep in. And go ahead and donate to the channel or become a member to get the videos faster than anybody else. With that being said, as always, it's your boy Wraith Hoops. Good morning, good evening, and good night. No matter where you're on the globe watching, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.